Mic check, mic check. All right, let's get this thing going. Let's kill this intro. Let's get the thumbnail going. Just waiting to make sure that my mic volume is good. All right, there we go. So we did our sound check. All right, that's always a plus when the sound check goes through. Welcome in to Eliminate the Gray with OffThaRecordDee. We got a great show. Great show lined up for us today. As always, something happened in the NFL. And through the show, a little curveball, but that's okay. We enjoy curveballs. We are one of the best things you could be in life is be flexible and not get locked in or boxed into doing things only one way and unwilling to change. So that's how I do things. That's how I love my life. But let's get to it. Welcome to Eliminate the Gray with OffThaRecordDee, where real sports talk live. Each week I break down the biggest stories in sports, giving you hot takes fueled by logic, life experience, and time spent in team sports. No hot takes for clicks, just real perspective. I call it how I see it. Whether it's breaking down a big game or calling out the media for how they spin the story. If you want sports talk with no agenda, you're in the right place. Let's go. So in today's show, we got quite a few topics that we're going to cover. So before we got that bombshell news of a trade yesterday, I was going to go over the Cleveland Browns 53-man roster, look at some of the cuts. We scratched that. So we got different ways that people are viewing Shedeur. So we're going to cover that later on in the show. We're going to look at if some former Cleveland Browns players believe Shedeur Sanders was given a fair shot. Later on, we're going to look ahead to the Browns versus Bengals matchup in week 1. We're going to look at some of the media misses and how the Browns kind of sold the idea of running with four quarterbacks on the final 53-man roster, and how they sent out big names on national stages to say this, only to trade Kenny Pickett for a 5th-round pick. So they wanted to say that people were conspiracy theorists because they didn't believe in what the Browns were doing. They thought the Browns had a different motive, and turns out they were right. We're going to break down how they spent that on fans and made the fans look. They wanted to make the fans look crazy, even though the new fans of the Cleveland Browns were like, something is off with this. I can't really put my finger on it. And the word that they use to dismiss what the new Cleveland Browns fans saw and felt. So we're going to get to that. And firstly, we're going to start off with the breaking news. To me, Jerry Jones makes a colossal mistake in waiting until a week before the season starts, 7 days before the Dallas Cowboys are going to be kicking off to open the year against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jerry Jones decides we're better off without Micah Parsons. I think that's going to be an L all the way around, no matter how you try to spin it, but he's going to try to spin it. We're not going to get to – I watched his press conference. I saw him call Michael too many times for me to even replay it, but I will just say this. One thing, so I've worked in a lot of different industries, and one of the industries I worked in was I did sales. And basically, when you're new to sales, when you don't really have a plan, whatever works for you in sales, you keep going back to that well. You keep doing the same thing. So Jerry Jones always goes back to how he did things previously, even though it hasn't worked for 30 years at this point. So that's a mistake that Jerry Jones made. He's like, oh, this is our Herschel Walker trade. I watch The Gambler. I watched some of it with about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, and when they traded for Herschel Walker, the key was if they didn't keep the 5 players on contract, they got 5 draft picks for it. And you would say, man, that's a haul. That's how you rebuild a team, with 5 draft picks. Can you really say it's the Herschel Walker trade if you're trying to rebuild a team with 2 late round first draft picks and a 30-year-old defensive tackle? I'm going to say no. I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to turn around your team. But we're going to get to it. So let me not hold this thing up any further. Let's get to it. So let me get this right on the screen for y'all. We're going to get rid of this thumbnail. We're going to get to the first clip. And this is Get Up This Morning. And I think this is the best way to sum up how Jerry Jones mishandled this situation when trading Micah Parsons. And this is something similar to how Nico mishandled the situation with trading Luka Doncic. So let's get to it. This is Mike Tannenbaum.
Reported themselves for much of the offseason like they're trying to win. They go out and get George Pickens on a 1-year deal. They let other players leave like DeMarcus Lawrence, Jordan Lewis, because you have Micah Parsons. Look at this graphic. When you have Micah Parsons, you're going to build around him. You're trying to win now. You signed CeeDee Lamb to an extension. You signed Dak Prescott to extension all recently because you're trying to win. So on the offensive side, you're trying to win now, and you have a new offensive coach in Brian Schottenheimer. On the other side of the ball, you move on from these players that you would have kept.
Some of the moves they make feel like win-now moves, and then trading him away for 2 first-round picks, which, by the way, don't figure to be very high picks, feels like the opposite of that. And so, in your mind, if a dollar is worth 100 cents, what did they get for him in this trade?
60 cents on the dollar. And let me bring up 2 teams in particular, the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills drafted a defensive lineman in the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th round and signed Joey Bosa. You're moving into a new stadium, and you have a chance to get a transformational player. This is the best player outside of Troy Aikman-Greeny that the Dallas Cowboys have drafted in 31 years. Yeah. And you can go get him moving into a new stadium, and you're trying to get over the hump to beat the Chiefs. You're the Ravens, and you have a chance to get a player like Micah Parsons. Who knows, maybe the Chargers, who knows who else steps in. But the fact that they didn't create a sense of urgency in March was a massive mistake that will cost this franchise for years, because you just don't know who else would have stepped up back then.
That's the point.
See, I totally agree with that, especially how he ended that. So when you have a player who a lot of teams are going to covet, a lot of teams who are going to push their chips in and say, this is the guy who could get us over the hump. That's a guy like a Micah Parsons when you're adding him to a defense and trading him this late. Too many teams have already done the things that they were going to do who are close enough to contention. So this is why it's poor timing. This is why if Jerry Jones knew he didn't want to pay Micah, which that's what it came down to, he didn't want to pay Micah, just like the Dallas Mavericks didn't want to pay Luka, you open that thing up and you sell to the highest bidder. People are trying to compare this to the Khalil Mack trade, forgetting I believe Khalil Mack was traded for 5 picks. 5 picks and players. And that's a haul because of when they did it. The funny thing, what they don't mention about the Khalil Mack trade is in that very next season after they traded Khalil Mack, Gruden was talking about how they couldn't rush the passer even though they just traded away Khalil Mack. So it just turns around and went in a circle and then it ended up being an L. So to me, that's how you can mishandle things. You can do what you believe is right for your team, and you can also mishandle it. And later on, we're going to get to some of how the Browns have mishandled things. And I've called out them for mishandling things, and people have made it about one person. So we're going to get to that later. But we definitely want to kick off the show with this Micah Parsons news. Rarely do you see a player of Micah Parsons' caliber traded this early in his career. I believe he's 26 years old. He signed 4 years, $188 million, $47 million a year, highest non-paid quarterback, $2 million more than Patrick Mahomes per year. One thing that people have to realize is the way the NFL works, players get paid more based on how much the last player got paid. Now, Micah Parsons, he cleared everybody by about $5.5–6 million. So he wanted to just put that bar high up there. So hey, I respect it. Get your money, get paid. As soon as they don't want you anymore, they're gonna cut you and find creative ways to get rid of you. So the number that he got, shout out to him. Shout out to his agent. Probably part of the reason why Jerry Jones didn't want to deal with the agent. They were going to break the bank, and they did. So shout out to them. That's going to be a win. Let's keep moving this thing forward. So we had to start off with that bombshell news just because that rocked the sports world yesterday afternoon. I said maybe probably a month ago now, that the Cowboys, I picked the Cowboys to not win a division, to not make the playoffs, or actually was it? I think it was not win the division, not make the conference championship game, not win a playoff game. I think that's what it was. I was very firm in that, and that was all based on how they handle things off the field. Because even though you get to the point of trading Micah because you didn't want to pay him, there were a multitude of ways you could have handled this better, and you chose not to. It's the same way with the Cincinnati Bengals. Even as a Browns fan, this is not just me being a Browns fan, I don't believe in how the Cincinnati Bengals handle their business, because you can get to where you end up at a lot easier without the fake we're dug in and we're not going to budge. Because the Cincinnati Bengals, they caved in on signing their first-round draft pick, meaning you were just being stubborn to be stubborn. They caved in on giving Trey Hendrickson more money, which you're being stubborn to be stubborn. So when you look at how you got here and you say, did we get here the most effective way? And teams that take the hardest route to get to the same place, those teams, I can write those teams off based on decision making. So just had to lump Trey Hendrickson in there as well, because he just signed and all they did was they just gave him more money for this year, which doesn't. And also if they franchise tag him next year, based on how much his position is making, they would almost be guaranteeing him like $70 million. So it just doesn't make sense. It's a poor way to make decisions. But let's keep this thing moving along. Let's get back to what we know and what we love. Let's get back to the Cleveland Browns. So right on the spot, after Shedeur's poor performance in his second playoff game, fans questioned the players or the level of talent that Shedeur Sanders was out there with. And people said, which is a L, people said, oh, they're fours. They're at the same level of fours. Well, let's do it. Let's just go through a little thought exercise. Okay. Do you believe the person, or do you believe the DN playing below Myles Garrett could be a starter somewhere else, and he's probably a backup because he's playing behind Myles Garrett? Is that possible? Is that something fair to say when you say this is one of the top, three best at his position? Would you say the person playing behind him could potentially start somewhere else? I would say in some cases that could be true. Now, when you look at fourth string guys, depending on who they're playing behind, they could still hold value. It could be that they don't fit a scheme. When you look at the guys that Shedeur was playing with primarily on the offensive line, and actually the receivers as well, could they even make a team somewhere else? That's a low barrier. Could they make a team somewhere else? You know what? We don't have to go far. All we got to do is go to everybody's favorite reporter in bad NFL analysis, Tony Grossi. Let's go, Tony. What you got to say?
He'll be on their 53. There were over 30 players claimed off waivers. None of them are former Browns. So all the players that Andrew waived to get to 53, none of them have been claimed. But the over 30 league-wide and the Browns claim.
So these are the same level of players, right? The same level of players. None of the guys got claimed. Over 30 players were claimed. So now let me ask you another question. See, all you got to do is just ask more questions and you'll get to the answers. So none of these guys were good enough to get claimed by any other teams. they also weren't re-signed by the Browns. Now, let's look at who had the most players claimed. Do y'all know who the answer to that question is? Do y'all know? If you said the LA Rams, you are correct. The LA Rams had the most players claimed. And guess what? 3 of them were players who are rushing the passer versus the Cleveland Browns. So, when you try to tell people that they're the same level of talent, that is going to be incorrect. Because some guys show flashes and teams said, we can work with this. If all else fails, in case of emergency, for insurance, if we have injuries, we can work with this. And you know what they said about the guys on the Browns? We'd rather get somebody off the street than get any of those guys you have blocking. So remember the whole point of this. This is not to excuse Shedeur's play. This is just to prove the point that all 4s aren't created equally. Just like all 1s aren't created equally. That is the reason why you have teams that win and lose. If everybody's starters were at the same level, basically it would be a coin toss who would win every week. If it's not a coin toss and some teams are heavy favorites and some teams are never going to be favored, that means their starters are not the same level. This is very basic thought patterns. This is very basic thought exercises that we're doing to get here. So that's a lazy narrative. I saw that so much. And one thing I thought was, this has to be people who don't understand talent. There are different levels of talent. So I just wanted to break that down. I thought that was funny. That was going back into last week, but I thought it was a key point I wanted to make to show there are different levels of talent. So all the people who are coming up with the lame excuse saying, oh, they're all backups, so they're the same level, that's going to be false. So let's move it. Let's move this thing along. What we got next on the docket? Okay, so I said that the national media was going out of his way to protect Dillon Gabriel a couple weeks ago after he had the pick 6 and he had the fumble. Now, it's always, see, I go out on a limb and I say my thoughts, and then 2, 3, and 4 weeks later, we get local media for Cleveland who they start to question things that I questioned a couple weeks ago. Now they're saying, if so many teams believe Dillon Gabriel wasn't or was overdrafted at pick 94, why is the national media now saying, man, you should believe in Dillon Gabriel? Now you get to this point? You didn't realize that? Let's go. This is the afternoon drive on 92.3 The Fan. This is where they are. I believe it's 2 different points in here we want to get to. So let's go.
I'm talking about the royal we of the media have gone from Shedeur Sanders, who, you know, at one point 4th stringer, now 3rd string quarterback, to a backup who, I mean, most of the people now talking about the Browns' confidence in Dillon Gabriel are the people that were also like, hey, he wasn't supposed to be a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, I think there is a shock factor attached to Dillon. I think he looked much better than people expected, and I do think he falls into that bucket, as Sean Salisbury puts it, like just the gamer, the guy that maybe just stinks at practice but then is really good. But we didn't find anybody that was saying that Dillon Gabriel was going to be what we saw in those preseason games. So there's a shock element here.
Well, and here's the other thing. Those same people were not saying this a week ago after his first preseason game where he turned the ball over twice.
Yeah.
I think that's where it just feels a little.
So y'all hear that? Y'all hear how they're finally starting to catch up? They're just going through the thought process like, so you clowned the Browns for drafting him in 94. You said the ceiling wasn't there. You said he had a high floor, but his ceiling wasn't high. So all these months you clowned him. You start protecting him when he had the 2 turnovers. Now that he's the backup, you're praising him? How did we get here? How did we get here? These inconsistencies are the reason why people question things pertaining to the Browns, because you got the national media saying this. You got the local media from the very beginning. Dillon Gabriel looked so good in practice, then more people saw him in practice and said he doesn't look good in practice. And then they turn around and they say you're a conspiracy theorist because you don't believe what the national media and the local media say. Make it make sense, y'all. Make it make sense. I'm always going to say this. You have to have a philosophy for how you do things and how you speak on things. You will notice that if you just get one more question out of people, they show their true colors. That's going to happen to Aditi. We got her coming up later. She didn't say this on Cleveland media, but she said this on Pittsburgh media about Shedeur Sanders and Kenny Pickett. We got that coming up later, so stay tuned. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be doing watch parties for the Cleveland Browns, all 17 games, as bad or as good as it is. Also, tomorrow, I'll be doing a watch party for Ohio State and Texas. We're going to see, is Arch Manning worth teams throwing away a whole season to try to win the Arch Manning sweepstakes after this year? We're going to see how he does going up against the defending champions. Beast. That's exactly it. They wiped it away. It never happened. It was a figment of our imagination. That's what it was. It never happened. Shout out to you, Beast. So you want to make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe so you can be tapped in and get notified when I go live. When we're doing these watch parties, you get my analysis live on the spot. Of course, you know I can't play video, but we'll be playing the audios for those games. And we're going to be keeping receipts because so many people said that this is the season or this is the year so many good quarterbacks are coming out. And we're just going to keep receipts on these quarterbacks. So we're going to watch them closely. And we're not going to do what everybody did this year where nobody watched them and then they just deferred to people who they said were supposed to watch them, which is hell. Now, I think it was one more point I wanted to get to here. Let me just skim through it real quick for you guys. Let's see.
Little herky-jerky to me. And
Let me skip this thing forward. This is not the best podcast.
Sanders jersey, but if I saw someone wearing a Dillon Gabriel,
and we placed our hope and trust in Dillon Gabriel.
Well, so if that was the case, they wouldn't be posting like what I saw earlier today, where it was Joe Flacco and David Njoku basically doing the stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends?
Oh, see, that's social media versus their actual PR team. I'm thinking because I do think and by the way, I think it has more to do with.
All right, so I found it. They're going to start to get to how stories are fed to the national media.
Shedeur than it does Dillon.
Their social media team was definitely they spent all day pushing Joe Flacco and David Njoku and the clips that were from the preseason games, the behind the scenes clips, and trying to make that buddy relationship a thing.
I do not remember their social media team pushing out the video of Dillon missing 2 throws yesterday. I don't remember that. Right when they're thrown into the hoop, I don't remember them.
No,
pushing
that wasn't their social media team.
Yeah, that wasn't their social media team.
That was our social media team. We just,
that's a different. That's a different. Oh. I wonder why they did.
Shedeur did hit it though, did he not?
He did. He hit it real good. No, I mean I think it would make sense that this organization is pushing hope in light of a lot of people really not believing they're to do anything this year, and that hope is, hey, it's not Shedeur, it's Dillon.
Well, so wait, so you said, okay, so social media doesn't count. What part of the Browns are pushing this, though?
No, the PR team. That's why Frank Schwab and Charles Robinson.
Oh, you think they're the ones talking to Schwab and Robinson and saying, hey, this is the new directive. I'm not disagreeing.
Them or Stefanski.
Okay.
I think Stefanski is real nice with the media, and the national media, and I don't think people realize that.
No, that's fair. I think he definitely talks to a lot of.
So as they work their way through this, they finally come to the point and say, you know what? Maybe it's the Browns who are pushing these narratives to the national media. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the party. Thanks for joining us. Took you a while to get here, but glad you were able to find your way here. Drinks are to the right. We'll be here all night. Enjoy yourself. I don't know why it took so long. The things we heard, I was like, this has to be the Browns putting this stuff out, especially based on the players. We heard Adam Schefter saying things. We heard Albert Breer saying things. Albert Breer couldn't answer the question about the depth chart, but he could tell us that Shedeur couldn't read or write. So just these things don't make sense. We heard what Tony Grossi's been saying, Mary Kay has been saying, and for some reason all of their things are aligned. That tells me somebody gave them a script and said, read it. Let's move this thing forward. What we got next? Okay, so I was going through and I was trying to find the actual clips of everybody saying that the Browns are going to run 4 quarterbacks. They definitely love speaking on Shedeur. They're caught in a place. So the Cleveland media, they're stuck in a place where their viewership is going to go down so much if they don't make up hypothetical stories about Shedeur, and they know their views will go down. So as a content creator, we could fall for the trap of, if you speak about the same thing and it always gets you views, when you don't have any more new ways to speak on that subject, you got to figure out how you can get that subject in so you can keep those views coming. Across everybody who speaks on Cleveland sports, you will hear them saying, man, my views are up, my views are up, my views are up. Me, I said a long time ago, I decided I wouldn't just keep pushing things even if it wasn't a story. So we saw this in real time. Tony Grossi on one day said, man, it would be crazy if the Browns put Bailey Zappi as the third emergency quarterback instead of Shedeur. That would be an uproar. That's the media starting a fire in the woods and then going and running and tell somebody, hey, it's a fire over there. Then Tony Grossi asked Kevin Stefanski about it, and Kevin Stefanski said, basically, Bailey Zappi is a insurance policy and Shedeur is an emergency quarterback. So that's an example of them trying to create a story and then having something to run with. So then they have something for you to look forward to every day. Is Shedeur going to be the emergency quarterback? They've done this so many times with just extending these things out so they have relevance. If Shedeur Sanders is not starting, Joe Flacco's starting, and Dillon Gabriel's the backup, and you get all your views from Shedeur, what are you going to do to get those same level of views? See, me, I said I would expand and go outside of Cleveland and talk about other sports that I enjoy, talk about other teams, talk about other things. So instead of just kind of boxing myself into only Cleveland Browns, when the biggest story you want to talk about is you're not able to talk about, I can go out and talk about other things. I started my show off talking about Micah Parsons. So I had the foresight to recognize that you could box yourself in that way, and I just chose not to. Shout out to you, Beast. That was a great point you made. So they burned the tapes on everybody saying that the Browns are going to have 4 on the 53-man roster, but I was able to find one, and this is going to be Adam Schefter.
Even though they named their starter today, we don't know the backup. I expect the Cleveland Browns to carry 4 quarterbacks.
So they will do that.
4 quarterbacks on their final 53-man roster.
Whew.
I expect they'll have 4 there. They're going to keep both rookies. They're going to keep Flacco. So we're really talking about Kenny Pickett.
What about Pickett?
And I expect he makes the roster.
So all it took was a couple of days, and we realized that was false. So the local media realized the Cleveland Browns is sending stories to the national media. You got Adam Schefter, one of the biggest reporters out there, or newsbreakers out there, saying the Browns are going to carry 4. The Browns used Adam Schefter. And what happens is people are just going to move forward and just accept that Adam Schefter was wrong. They're not going to question it. They're not going to say, who put this out? Why is this out? Why do we ever hear this? They're just going to say, he got it wrong. So when you have new fans coming in and looking at a sport like football, football does things that football has done things that NFL fans accept that don't make sense. NFL fans have accepted that coaches are going to get up in press conferences and lie to you with a straight face, and then people are going to accept the fact that they're a good person. Somehow they juggle it. General managers are going to lie to you. So it's baked into the cake that NFL people will lie to you with a straight face. Now, new fans to the Cleveland Browns, new fans to the NFL, they're like, I'm seeing something here. I don't believe this person is telling the truth. I think this person is lying to me. So new fans are using context clues like, this doesn't look right. This looks off. This guy, I don't believe him. Look at it. He has a twitch. He looks down. He kind of glitched a little bit when he was talking about somebody. And that's the disconnect. So what the old fans do is they say, you don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with them lying to us. We baked in that they're going to lie to us. That's what people did when they went to those crazy lefts to defend Kevin Stefanski when Shedeur Sanders fans were saying, something is off about this. So they went sabotage. I always knew sabotage. I was very hesitant to say sabotage because I knew that they would just shut that off and they would just make it a character thing. That's why I always kept pushing incompetence, because then you got to have the conversation. Sabotage, defend character. Incompetence, we got to question what happened. So this is going to be Mary Kay. So remember, they're sending this out to so many people. This is Mary Kay. Rich Eisen is going to ask her about it.
53 is not going to happen, right? Mary Kay?
No, I think it is going to happen.
You do?
I think, yes, I do. I think all four of these quarterbacks are going to make the team. I really do think that it's going to be a matter of Joe and Kenny getting things started off for this football team. And then I know that the Browns would love to see, if they can, Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders in some live action at some point this season, because.
So like I said, it's baked into the cake. It's baked into the cake of football that you're going to get lied to. Now, new people to football are saying Adam Schefter's a liar, Mary Kay's a liar, Tony Grossi's a liar, and you are questioning the things that you see in real time. And you are right to question it because people have accepted it so long that they think it's okay. So I just wanted to show y'all that this whole last week, everybody was trying to put fans in a conspiracy theory box. They were trying to put former NFL players in the conspiracy theory box, all because they use the word sabotage. If you take away the word sabotage and you say it's incompetent what the Cleveland Browns are doing with their quarterbacks, it would have forced everyone to speak on it, and everybody would have had to call out what they're doing, because you could have got to the same outcome but handled it a better way. So let's keep this thing moving forward. Let's go. Who we got next? Okay, so we have another local reporter. This is going to be Baskin and Phelps on 92.3 The Fan, but this is going to be Jimmy Watkins, who works for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. It's one of the oldest newspapers in Cleveland. If you don't know, actually, I have the Plain Dealer where LeBron was actually on the Plain Dealer. I should have dug it out of my stash and showed it to you. I'll show y'all one day. But he's going to question how the Browns handle the QB situation and if they have the cachet to do it this way. I totally agree. Beast. Actually, for the podcast people, let me be a better podcaster. Let me read this out to y'all. Hopefully Shedeur can play this year. He got some bad habits he have to get rid of. And when he does, he's going to be a great quarterback. So I agree with that assessment. Him doing the roll out the back of the pocket, he used that strategy because in college his tackles were bad, and it will buy him time in the NFL. They want you to try to roll out the back of the pocket because they know they can eventually get to you. They can just collapse the pocket. In the NFL, you got to step up because those tackles are doing their job to push guys past you. So stepping up, it will be just a lot of wasted space if you step up. So he definitely has to clean that up. He definitely has to be comfortable. And in real time, the play calls have to adjust so he's not put in that position. You got to do some things. You got to throw some screen plays. You got to do a draw play early in the down where you normally throw the ball. You got to do some things to throw that defensive line off. And I think that was added to the list of things that didn't happen when the Browns were playing the Rams and Shedeur's the quarterback. So let's get to Jimmy Watkins. Let's go, Jimmy.
I think the Kenny Pickett trade probably surprised some people just based on the messaging that we were getting on him for a lot of the season, and the fact that he was, the quarterback that they chose before they had any other quarterback plans. I think that was kind of it's a small potatoes thing, but I think that was kind of a bad piece of business for the Browns on the whole. When you trade for a guy like that, you're telling me one of two things. You're either telling me we think we can get more out of this guy than he has produced so far, or we think we can use him as a preseason tease and get more to trade later on. We got back from him. And I guess technically you want to say it's a push on the 2 fifth-round picks. I see that, but it's a little bit deeper than that. Like you gave up, first of all, a 2020, this year's Browns, 2025 Browns 5th-round pick is going to be tough to beat for anyone else. And the pick that they ended up trading up for to get Shedeur, they gave up an extra pick in that trade. They had to trade up one spot ahead of the original Kenny Pickett pick. So again, small potatoes, but in the grand scheme of things, you do lose in that pick. Obviously, those two moves aren't connected. It just happened that way. And I'm in that as the Browns are trying to recoup talent from 3 years of not having a first-round pick, and a couple of those years they didn't have seconds. You just can't afford to be wasting picks. And it's kind of a cutesy move, right? Like, oh, we'll take somebody else's trash and turn them into treasure. Well, what has this front office done to earn the trust that they can do something like that? If Howie Roseman, Andrew Berry's original trade partner with the Philadelphia Eagles, wants to try stuff like that and it doesn't work out, or you get a half push on the deal in the aggregate, sure. Howie Roseman wins Super Bowls, builds incredible rosters. Andrew Berry is best known right now for making the worst transaction in NFL history. So I don't think that I'm giving the benefit of the doubt on this one.
I think that's a great take. I think that's a great assessment. The Browns are not good enough. I said this earlier, a couple weeks ago. I say everything a couple weeks ago because I can't remember the week. They're kind of running together. The Browns are not good enough to do side quests. The Kenny Pickett idea, the Kenny Pickett project was a side quest. You're not good enough to do that. You have to leave that to the teams who are more established, who are quarterback away or quarterback injury, and they can go do that. What the Minnesota Vikings did, they put into a very well fine-tuned offense. They put Sam Darnold in there. They had a great defense. That is not where the Browns are. The Browns had a great defense 2 years ago. Their defense fell off last year. They're trying to get back to where they were 2 years ago. And you don't have a franchise quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings had a franchise quarterback who they believe in J.J. McCarthy. Those are two totally different situations. So the Browns, where they are currently, they are closer to the Carolina Panthers when they got Sam Darnold, when they got Baker Mayfield, and they were just taking flyers on guys. So, pause. This is Beast. I'm going to watch that OSU Texas game. I want to see what Arch do. Definitely agree. I'm going to live stream for the game. I'm going to do a watch party for that. I want to see what Arch Manning does too. We haven't seen enough. I don't know why they got him in the Heisman candidate talks already. But I want to see what he does, and it's going to be real. It's going to be the first game. Also, OSU, we got Julian saying, I want to see what he does. He's going to have a ton of weapons around him. Ohio State has new defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. We want to see what he does at the collegiate level. Also, new offensive play caller is Brian Hartline, who is the receivers coach. So we want to see how he does with calling plays. So it's a lot of moving parts in that game. So I definitely think it's going to be worth it. So I'm going to be doing a live stream for me. I'm going to watch it live, give you my analysis. A lot of people who follow the Cleveland Browns also follow Ohio State closely because for so long the Browns were so bad. We would get our good view of football on Saturdays watching Ohio State, and then we would just find a way to get through Sundays with the Browns playing. So I'll definitely be streaming that live. So shout out to you, Beast. But yeah, back to the Browns. They haven't built up any cachet to be able to do these things. What people got to do is look at what Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry walked into. They walked into Dorsey having some great picks. They walked into Myles Garrett. They walked into Denzel Ward. They walked into Nick Chubb in his prime. They walked into Baker Mayfield. They walked into Dorsey trading for Wyatt Teller. They walked into Joe Bitonio. They walked into some ready-made parts, and they were close to a team doing well. And then what did Andrew Berry do? He took Alabama right tackle Jedrick Wills and moved him to left tackle. which that's not something you should do when you're that close. You should just get the best left tackle you can get, not try to do a project. Then things went bad. People jumped to who Baker is now, but remember, Baker was playing well already. They didn't have an adult in the room who could say, Baker, you're hurting the team. You need to sit down. You need to heal. You need to rest your shoulder. At the time, I want to say we had Case Keenum, and he was one of the highest paid backups at the time because Baker was still in his rookie deal. They let Case Keenum play one game, and they kept going back to Baker. They torpedoed the whole season on that decision. So when they like to bring up the two-time coach of the year, yeah, look at the two-time coach of the year. Look at those 2 seasons, two-time coach of the year. He's been a coach for 5 years. 2 of those years were just garbage, and they were they went down the drain based on decisions from Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. So they don't have this built-up cachet where we can say, you know what, they took some risks before and it worked out. They don't have that. If you look at Andrew Berry's track record of all his draft picks, if I can name you the top draft picks he has, that means there haven't been enough of them. There hasn't been enough of them. If you look at what the Browns have done just the last 2 seasons before this year, their QB rooms been all over the place. Last year we started the offseason with Huntley, Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. 2 years ago, we had Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Josh Dobbs, Deshaun Watson, and I can't remember who our other quarterback was, but he's always playing this game and starting off with 4 quarterbacks. Beast, that's a great question, and it leads right into what I'm saying. Why do QBs have to leave Cleveland just to be successful? Because for a long time, since 99, Cleveland's had so many QBs because it's always an internal fight. So people who are new to the Browns, they're like, man, why is this QB battle thing? And Browns fans are saying it's unnecessary because we've seen it too many times. We always are in a quarterback battle. We're always having 2 quarterbacks. Oh, the organization likes this guy plays better. And it's always an issue. You go all the way back to Derek Carr. I want to say Derek Anderson, Kelly Holcomb, Johnny Manziel, Brian Hoyer, Deshaun Kaiser, and Cody Kessler. We always have the quarterback competition, so you are putting more pressure on these guys because you just don't make a decision. What I wanted the Browns to do this offseason was make quick, sound decisions. If you're going to go Kenny Pickett, don't bring in Joe Flacco. If you're going to draft and say Dillon Gabriel's the guy, after you have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, roll with that instead of drafting Shedeur. So every decision they make makes the last decision not make sense. So you trade for Kenny Pickett, you get rid of DTR, okay. Then you get Joe Flacco. Then you draft Dillon Gabriel. Then you draft Shedeur. It's no plan. So then you have Joe Flacco coming out. I'm not getting enough reps to get in a good rhythm. Kenny Pickett still getting 707 reps. Kenny Pickett getting all those 707 reps when we supposedly have 2 developmental quarterbacks is taking reps away. He's only taking them from Shedeur. He's not taking them from Gabriel. Gabriel got the most reps in all of the offseason program and training camp. So he didn't take reps away from Gabriel. He took reps away from Shedeur. Now, if you're telling me this is a developmental guy that you want to build up, why are you giving so many reps to Kenny Pickett? So you see how they just make it's a series. It's 1,000 cuts. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's not one just large bad mistake they made. They made a bunch of small mistakes that lead to a guy not being as ready as he should if you just poured into him the whole time. Dillon Gabriel should get out there and look better than Shedeur. Not based on talent, but based on what they've poured into him in the offseason. So that's the issue that the Browns have. If I'm always dividing things up into 4s, I'm creating additional problems. Quarterbacks can't succeed here. That's what it is. It's always a quarterback competition. There's always too many quarterbacks. Just go back. All you got to do is go back since 99. And also, the Browns adjust how they're running offense too much. Last year, the Browns got an entire new offensive staff. They got rid of the running back coach. They got Deuce Staley. They got rid of the tight ends coach that we had. After David Njoku had his best year, they got rid of the offensive line coach. Or actually, the offensive line coach, who was one of the best known. He went to work in Tennessee because his son became a head coach, so I understand that one. They got rid of the offensive coordinator who went to New England Patriots, and they brought in Ken Dorsey. They wanted to retool everything last year, only to retool everything this year. So they are creating the chaos. They are creating the inconsistencies. Then Kevin Stefanski was going to call plays. Then Kevin Stefanski, from the pressure or whatever, gave up play calling as soon as Deshaun Watson got hurt to Ken Dorsey. And then he's calling plays for Jameis. Everybody said we should sign Jameis early. I said Jameis is too turnover prone. What happened? We were minus 22 in the turnover ratio for the year last year, mainly because of interceptions. So that's why all quarterbacks come here and they show glimpse of hope, and then they go somewhere else and they're successful because they're just not put in as many bad situations as they are in Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns, they put pressure on Dillon Gabriel. You saw him go out there and kind of fumble it in his first game. They put pressure on Shedeur by leading Shedeur to believe, hey, you got a chance to move ahead of Dillon Gabriel. When they knew good and well they would never move him ahead of Dillon Gabriel. Shedeur could have went out there and play freely if he didn't have put additional pressure on himself to try to perform because he's thinking in the competition. How does this whole preseason play out if right away they say, first off, if you only have 3 quarterbacks, but you say right away, Joe Flacco's the starter, Gabriel's the backup because we drafted him in 3rd round, Shedeur's 3rd string, and you give them reps according to that. Stuff would have went way better. So they create these messes, and then people say on one hand, they say trust them, but then on the other hand, when you just go back and you pull the receipts on their records, it doesn't look good. So, and Kevin Stefanski is just over 500. If Kevin Stefanski was coaching anywhere else, he would be fired. After that 3-14 year last year, he'd be fired. So, hopefully that answered your question, Beast. I don't think I need anything else from this video. Let me clean up the screen a little bit. Let me get rid of some of these things that we already went through just to make life a little bit easier. Okay, so we got Aditi. Now, Aditi was in the middle of the firestorm with the competitor versus entertainer situation. And this is going to be her. I got 2 clips from her speaking on Dillon Gabriel. And she's going to say something and she doesn't even recognize it, which is kind of funny. Then I got her speaking on Shedeur. Let me make sure the clips are in the right spots. Clips are in the right spots. Okay, good. Then I have a clip of her on the radio in Pittsburgh, and we're going to listen to how she speaks on Shedeur. But first, let's start here. This is Aditi on Dillon Gabriel.
I had a general manager on another team in the NFC tell me that he absolutely loved Gabriel, was one of the best meetings he's ever had. He just wasn't in a market for a quarterback of where he sees Gabriel ultimately ending up.
So you hear that? As she was trying to give praise to Dillon Gabriel, he said they're not in the market for a quarterback on ultimately where they see Dillon Gabriel ending up. Meaning, they see Dillon Gabriel as a backup. They don't need a backup. All you got, just listen. All you got to do is listen. Now, Beast, do you think Kevin going to be fired after this season if Kevin Stefanski does not at least double the win total? If he doesn't win 6 games, I don't see how they bring him back. Because there's no way you can win 5 games and tell me that you are a lot better than you were when you won 3 games. I think he has to double the win total, and then Shedeur has to look good towards the end of the year to save him. If that doesn't happen, if they did all this stuff and they win 4 games, 3 games, Joe Flacco doesn't look good, Gabriel looks like he's in over his head once he gets to play, and then they wait too long and they give Shedeur 1 or 2 games and he looks the best out of all of them, I think that's an instance where you have to fire them, because then you realize that they didn't do well at evaluating talent. and putting guys in a good position. They win 6 to 7 games, I think he'll be here. Anything less than that, I think he's gone. Even though Jimmy Haslam said that, he has faith in them and they're young and you don't want to keep switching it over, you can't have back-to-back seasons winning 3 games and think you're just going to skate forward. Dawn, I agree with that. Let me read this for the podcast, people. Dillon is nowhere near the caliber of Shedeur. I agree with that. This is what I believe. Not what I believe. This is what I've accepted. I've accepted Dillon Gabriel's going to get the first shot. And the way I look at that and accept it is, if Joe Flacco goes out there 6 games, we're 1-5, we're 2-3, and they say they want to change, they go to Dillon Gabriel. They go to Dillon Gabriel, and Dillon Gabriel doesn't do any better. By the time they get to Shedeur, he's going to have free reign to just play it out. And he's not going to look over his shoulder. So if they would have made Shedeur the backup going into the year, and Joe Flacco only made it 6 or 7 games, then they went to Shedeur, they would be putting Shedeur in the pressure cooker of looking over his shoulder. So the first shall be last and the last shall be first. That's how I look at it. That was Aditi. She didn't realize that everybody was putting a ceiling on Dillon Gabriel. Let's get to her speaking on Shedeur. Appreciate that, Don. This is very key. I don't know how much research they do, but it doesn't seem like much.
With Shedeur Sanders, obviously, he was struggling in that game. He was powering up to go in there and win for the 2-minute drive, and Kevin decided to pull him. What did you think of that decision?
Let me ask you a question. Why are you saying that he was powering up to go in for that drive?
Because in his interview, they asked him about it, and he said he was powering up to get ready to go back in there. He didn't.
So that's why I just said that last thing about how much research do they really do. She said, why did you say that? Because in Shedeur's interview, Shedeur said he was on the bike, or he was riding a bike, and he was powering up just to stay loose and to stay warm and stay ready so he can go back in for the last 2-minute drive. She didn't know that. So if you notice, she already is like, are you setting me up or what? She's already kind of questioned it, all because she didn't even watch Shedeur's interview. But, hey, let's go.
Didn't know he was pulled. That's what he said. It's his words, not mine.
This is real.
This is when they start to glitch. Dawn, I would love it to be game 3. I think it's going to be around game 9 or 10 is when he's going to get in. Because I think that they are going to be stubborn and make sure they give Dillon Gabriel 3 or 4 games. So I think Joe Flacco, I don't really see the Browns having more than 2 wins after 6 games. And at that point, you want to go to the next quarterback. But they've proven that they believe in Dillon Gabriel, even if we don't believe in Dillon Gabriel. So I think they're going to give him maybe 3 or 4 games. Appreciate that. So, quick story about that, about my voice, Dawn. I used to be a recruiter, and I would speak to people on the phone all day, and everybody who I recruited with would tell me, man, you're supposed to be on the radio, you're supposed to be talking, and look at this. A couple years later, now I'm doing a podcast. So, I appreciate that. That's funny. Let's get to Aditi's real response. She kind of glitched out there, but let's go.
Really hard for me, and I'll be very honest. Shedeur Sanders is a really, really nice young man. He's a very likable young man. He is certainly trying. I've seen growth from him. You go to the first game where he came off for a first drive and didn't necessarily know he was supposed to go sit on the bench next to Tommy Reese, who that game was down on the field, and look at the tablet, to this third.
So she just said something critical there. Dawn, I agree. Kevin is on borrowed time. I agree. They got to win. They got to win to keep their jobs. So this shows me that this is an operational issue when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. So when Shedeur was at Colorado, we all watched the games. Shedeur would go sit on the bench, and then he would be right there, and Pat Shermer would be right there with the tablet, and they would go over what they saw, and they would speak on it. Now, with the Browns, they're telling us that Shedeur is a developmental quarterback, but you don't lay out the operations of how things are going to go. So when he first started, Tommy Rees was not in the box. He was down on the sidelines, and you say, oh, Shedeur didn't know that he was supposed to go find Tommy Rees. It should be the reverse. It should either be a designated spot they go to, or Tommy Rees should be there. But then Tommy Rees moved up to the box. So now as you go, you do it on your own. To me, she thinks that this is Shedeur not being ready. To me, this is an operational issue. I've been through like a lot of different training, and this training always stuck with me. They told us to explain how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and totally agree. He's definitely there. He's definitely their cash cow. Look at the jerseys. My bot is aggressive. It thinks you were spamming, Dawn, but you were not. So let me see. I still got your messages here. My bot is super aggressive, so nothing personal. You didn't do anything. I don't know why it's doing that, but I still got your messages here, Dawn, and I can still read your messages. So still feel free to chat. So the training that I was in, they told people make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you know what everybody said? They said get the peanut butter and jelly and put it on the bread and put it together. Now, to a person that's never made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you're like, where do I get this bread from? Where do I get the peanut butter from? Where do I get the jelly? How do I put it on the bread? The correct answer is you send them to get the bread from wherever the bread is. You bring it to wherever they're going to be working at. You get the peanut butter from, if it's in the cabinet or in the refrigerator. You get the jelly, whether it's in the cabinet or it should be in the refrigerator if it's open. If it's in the refrigerator, you're going to go get a knife or a spoon, whichever one you prefer, and you're going to get one for each so you can open the bread, take it out. You walk them through step by step how things are going to go. So when it comes to operational things, she thinks this is a knock on Shedeur. I believe this is a knock on the Browns, because if you want me to believe he's developmental, you should walk him through the steps of how the operation is going to go on game day. And the reason why I can be critical of the Browns when this happens is because when DTR got his first start, I was at that Browns game when we played Baltimore. DTR found out, we all got alerts on our phones, maybe 15 to 20 minutes before kickoff, DTR was starting. And Deshaun Watson was out there trying to give it a go. DTR said, I didn't know I was starting. I wasn't ready. That's an operational issue. If you know that Deshaun is a game-time decision, DTR should have been getting prepared to be the starter that whole week. That's an operational issue. So people who are new to the Browns, they think that everything you're doing is to defend Shedeur. A lot of it is you were calling out the Browns for having the same issues and problems that they've always had. So that's an operational issue. She thinks it's something else. I think she's exposed the Browns there. She thinks she did it. Let's see if there's anything else we need from this clip before we get to her more spicy clip that she has.
Third game, after every drive, he's immediately asking, where's the tablet? Where's the tablet? He's sitting down, like I said, next to Pickett, going over things. As someone who was standing on the side.
I totally agree with you. Flacco or Dillon will last that long practice shows. I think Flacco, everybody's saying, oh, Flacco looks so good. I'm like, Flacco probably got 6 games. I don't even know if he has that. How many hits can Flacco take? Everybody says, man, if you were at the game, they said Flacco just looked to move slowly. So if this offensive line has any slip-ups, any issues, any missed assignments, a 40-year-old's body just responds differently to getting hit by NFL players. That's just what it is. So I agree with you. I don't see them. I even seen somebody saying Flacco probably could play all 17 games. I'm like, come on, man. He ain't played 17 games since 2017. That was 8 years ago. Stop trying to push these different things. We don't believe it. What Aditi just said there. First, she was saying he didn't know what to do. But in game 3, he knew exactly what to do. You don't know what you just did, Aditi. What you've taught us is, as soon as he identified what his responsibility was, he did it. So that's somebody who's making adjustments on the fly. So she was trying to paint that as a negative. It didn't work. because we actually listen to what people say over here. Now, I have another clip. We're going to 92.3 The Fan. They're finally going to come around and say, you know what, we wasted time on a Pickett trade, and then they got some stuff that they're going to speak on Aditi. So let's go.
Somebody texted me like, you better be careful what you're saying over there. I'm like, what? Huh? Because I said, Adam Schefter is not, I'm sure he did a lot of good journalism to get to where he is, but I mean, he's an extension of NFL PR. He announces these things. He's basically an announcer. He announces these things. They see the reaction, and then when they go up there and do their press conferences, they tailor their reaction to the reaction of the fans. That's how that works. So he's the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. He's the chosen one. Like, yeah, he's the guy. No offense to him. I wouldn't want to have to stare at my phone 23 hours a day. He did a lot of work to get to where he is. No disrespect, but that's the way they do it now. So, like, yeah, like there will be some things that break locally, but, yeah, that's why you get some of the nationals, at least in the NFL. You know, basketball is a little different. Baseball is a bit different. The NFL, it is as tight as it is. That's why I'm not mad of not telling us about damn Bailey Zappi of all things.
It's going to be funny if it doesn't even happen. Can't get to the Champions Post, end all champions.
It's funny because every day I hear them sounding more and more like me. I'm like, man, all y'all have to do is ask the questions early. So that was the part. They were saying basically the national media has been fed stories. The local media isn't fed that many stories. One thing I will highlight is when Shedeur was going to start the first preseason game, they gave that news to Mary Kay. She was the one that they allowed to break that story. But they're going to play a clip from Aditi being on Pittsburgh radio. So let's get to it. I got to find the spot, y'all.
They don't have a quarterback as a franchise. One guy's 40, and the other kid.
Now we're playing the wrong one.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Who do you think has a better chance of being an NFL starting quarterback? Kenny Pickett or Shedeur Sanders? What would you say?
Kenny Pickett.
So then why keep Sanders over Pickett?
So all you have to do is ask all these reporters one additional question and look at how fast they expose themselves. So she was doing a lot of dancing on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. That was Aditi, who I just showed y'all. She was saying positive things. When people ask you a question and the first thing a person goes to is they say something nice about the person they're about to critique, you just eliminate the nice thing that they said. Because what they're going to say after that is how they feel. And that's what happened with Aditi. And now this is on Pittsburgh radio, so she's probably thinking, man, these Cleveland fans, they're never going to hear this. She believes Kenny Pickett is going to be a better NFL quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. So now you ask another question. If she believes Kenny Pickett is going to be a better NFL quarterback than Shedeur Sanders, how can you view what she says about Shedeur without any bias? You can't. The bias is baked in the cake, y'all. It's baked in the cake. When they were getting the flour and they were getting the sugar and they were letting that butter get to room temperature and they let those eggs get to room temperature and they're about to make you this nice pound cake. It's baked in the cake, their bias. Her bias was exposed that fast because it's baked in the cake. It's part of it. Now she can't tell me I view Shedeur positively because she just said it. Across many NFL circles, find me the person who is saying a player who stayed in college an additional year, came into the NFL older, and has already been traded 3 times is going to be better than who was a player who was projected as a first or at worst second round talent coming into the NFL. You can't find me the person is going to say that. So what I also do is I have a long memory. I don't forget when people hitch their wagon to a player, I don't forget it. Dawn? You're on to something. Dillon isn't used to being a starter without maximum protection. I totally agree. So I went back when the Browns drafted Dillon Gabriel. Let me play it for you all. This is me. This was me that night. The Browns are coming off a 3-14 season. It got to the point I didn't even do my live streams the last 2 weeks of the year because I couldn't take it. And I'm like, dang, they're trying to sell me on Dillon Gabriel. I watch all Dillon Gabriel highlights you can find from his time at Oregon, and it was a highlight for everybody else. It was a highlight for Tez Johnson. It was a highlight for the tight end. It was a highlight for the offensive line. I was like, anybody could be doing this. The way they were showing those throwing lanes to him, the way they were rolling them out, the type of screens they were running, the action they were running, I was like, you would have to change your entire offense. Look at Tua. Tua Tagovailoa is also left hand. He's smaller. They do so many different things to cater to Tua's skills. You have to run a totally different offense to make it work. So I agree with you right there, Dawn. That's just facts. That's just facts about Dillon Gabriel.
Tell you, I don't want to insult anybody, but I can name starting quarterbacks in the current National Football League whose coaches have told me that Kenny Pickett is better than the guy that they are starting.
Okay, but why keep Sanders?
So she just said NFL coaches who are saying Kenny Pickett is better than Joe Flacco. That's what she said. She can name them. Name them then. I want to know who believes Kenny Pickett is better than Joe Flacco so I can add them to the list of people who I change how I view their judgment when it comes to quarterbacks. Because I'm not going to let Aditi forget you hitched your wagon to Kenny Pickett. You hitched your wagon to a journeyman. Let's see how he does. The beautiful thing is we can feel how we feel. Everything plays out on the field. Everything plays out on the field. The good, the bad, the ugly, regardless of how we view a player. So if you're hitching your wagon to Kenny Pickett, hitch it. Don't hide it. Let everybody know who you're hitching your wagon to. When Jason Lloyd hitched his wagon to Jedrick Wills, I didn't forget it. I just remembered. Hey, whenever you try to talk to me about offensive linemen, I remember you hitched your wagon to Jedrick Wills, who hadn't produced anything or not much to that point. So let's hear some more of what Aditi has to say.
Over Pickett then.
Because you used a draft pick on him. We've seen plenty of teams cut draft picks that they just drafted. There are plenty of questions associated with why you would draft a quarterback just 2 rounds after a quarterback that you very clearly liked so much, but that's what they did. And Andrew Berry is someone who has not been known to cut loose a guy that he just drafted. And so there you are. And now the development of these quarterbacks becomes yet another thing that Kevin Stefanski has to figure out and deal with amidst massive circus that surrounds anything and everything related to Shedeur Sanders.
And there you have it. All you got to do is let these people talk. I'm the person, I want people to talk. Tell me exactly how you feel so we don't have to guess. Beast, Kenny Pickett is a backup. I agree. Dawn, both of them are backups. Dillon Gabriel, Kenny Pickett are backups. The upside is not there. But she got to the end. She said all that because she doesn't believe in Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback prospect. She said it, her words. She don't believe in him. She also said all that to basically say Andrew Berry is putting Kevin Stefanski in all these bad situations with the quarterback position, only to end it with her defending Kevin Stefanski. So, when y'all have ever watched UCSS, y'all have heard Aditi speak, have you ever heard her be that demonstrative when she was speaking? The answer is no. 2, have you ever heard her speak that way on Shedeur? No. Have you ever heard her speak that way about Andrew Berry? No. So we are in a place where when I first started really focusing more on the Browns, I started looking at it and I was trying to figure out, why is the coverage of sports so muddied and so messed up? We are seeing in real time people's careers get eliminated because they're not relevant anymore. The beat writer is outdated and it's something you don't need because we have the internet. We have sites like X. We have IG. The Browns can essentially be their own beat writers. They can put out clips. They can put out a post on X on a player they want to highlight. They can say how they feel. We are watching a lot of people who know their relevance is leaving. All these beat writers who never studied the game, never learned to analyze the game, they are going to be obsolete really soon. They're not going to be needed. You're not going to need to listen. We can listen to Kevin Stefanski's press conferences. Why do I need a middle person just to repeat what Kevin Stefanski says and regurgitate it back to me with no breakdown, no analysis, no critique? You don't need that person. And once I started to see that these people are obsolete, look at who gives the worst takes. Especially just look. We're gonna look at the Shedeur Sanders situation. Who gives the worst takes on Shedeur? Writers who never analyze the game, and former head coaches, former GMs, former being the key word there. They're not good enough to still be in the game. That's what it is. You're not good enough to still be in the game, so we put you on a pedestal because you used to do something. But you have to update your resume for us to value what you're saying. They got the worst takes. They got the worst takes about Shedeur. And it's a built-in script that when they get questioned, they all go to the same thing. If you notice, what's the one thing that we heard more than anything the last week about Shedeur? Oh, he's back to those bad habits that he had in college. Shedeur has to clean up, not drifting back. It's not a skill you can use in the NFL. That's on Shedeur. But if you're going to say he's back to doing stuff he did in college, is his accuracy still there? He did that in college. He was a low turnover quarterback. Is that still there? Or do we only get to pick the bad things that you don't like about a player and highlight? We were told that Dillon Gabriel was such a good decision maker until he started making bad decisions. And when he started making bad decisions, they found every way in the world to blame everybody else. So it's just crazy. Yeah, the deception is real. It's there. It's there. It's obvious. I see it. I know who is getting eliminated. Think about it. When is the last time anybody here has clicked on an article that a beat writer has written about a team? And some people probably never clicked on an article that a beat writer has written. When the newspaper was prevalent, you would read their words mattered because they were telling you things that you couldn't see live or see on your own. The day and age we're in now, the beat writer is eliminated. So ESPN, they try to turn them into analysts, but then their stuff is crazy. And then I always like to give y'all something to pay attention to. Beast, you see it. Shedeur rarely throws interceptions. That's a fact. Do you ever hear them talk about that? Did they say, as bad as his game was, he still didn't turn the ball over? Did they mention that? They didn't mention it because it doesn't play into what they want us to believe about Shedeur. So they just left that to the side. So, but this is what I want y'all to do. The next time you're watching any coverage of the Cleveland Browns, I want y'all to listen for when a person says, I went to ask so-and-so. I went to ask so-and-so, and that so-and-so could be NFL head coach. They're always going to say NFL when they say who they went to. Aditi, I went to NFL head coaches. Jason Lloyd, I went to NFL coaches. You're always going to hear them say that. Albert Breer, I went to NFL executives. Why are they saying that? They're saying that because they don't have the understanding of it. That's what it is. It exposes their lack of understanding. So, should I value what you have to say if you don't understand what you're speaking on? That's the question. That's the question you got to ask yourself when you're looking at these people. I put up a post on my TikTok and I said that Shedeur Sanders was pressured on 9 of 11 dropbacks. Do you know what a lot of people said? A lot of people said, you're making excuses for Shedeur. Because I just put the stats of how often he was pressured. When you're pressured, what's the answer? If you were watching me live, I was saying this live. So I said live when the game was going on versus the Rams. I said, why are they not throwing any screen passes? Why are they not doing any quick game so they can throw off the defensive line? I saw it in real time that there was an issue there because there's an understanding there. Other people said, did I watch the game? People said, did I watch the game? I didn't even respond to them. It wasn't worth it. The Rams ran one defense. They ran a cover one, and they started off, it looked like a cover two shell. They ran a cover one, and they always had the safety defend the running back out the backfield. And as the ball was about to get snapped, he always took the running back. If the running back stayed in the block, which they didn't do it that often, he just chipped down and he was in the middle of the field to cloud up the field. So I asked somebody else another question. I said, what cover one beaters did Kevin Stefanski run? Kevin Stefanski didn't run a cover one beater, which is a cover one beater would be you're running mesh routes where you have like a tight end and a receiver going across the middle of the field because you want to get those guys running across the field because it's essentially the way they were doing it was man-to-man. So you want them in a chase position, the defenders, so then you could hit your receivers across. They keep going across the field. So this is an example of understanding. So y'all see, if you watch it live, I call this stuff out live, and I'm telling you, I'm showing you understanding. These people, they don't have the understanding there. They don't have it. So I just wanted to go through that and show y'all that it's some people that you could check off the list that if you're reporting something, maybe I can listen to it 30% of the time, but if you're giving analysis, I just got to put you at 0 and tune you out. So that's Aditi. Hopefully y'all see. Earlier in the year, I told y'all about Mary Kay. I told y'all about Tony Grossi. So every once in a while, probably once a month, I'm just going to let y'all know and tell y'all people or expose people for their true intentions and how they really feel. So let's keep this thing moving forward. Now we're going to get to Shedeur. This is Bigplay Cleveland. This is going to be Phil Taylor. He got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. He's a defensive tackle. This is Josh Cribbs. He was an everything player for the Cleveland Browns. He ran a bunch of kick returns back. He ran punt returns back. He came in and was running the Wildcat offense when that was a big thing. And then also they're going to have Hanford Dixon, who was a DB for the Cleveland Browns. So all these guys actually played for the Cleveland Browns. This is Joshua Cribbs' wife. She's going to ask a very specific question, and I just want y'all to listen to their answers because I'm here to show that Shedeur Sanders fans, Cleveland Browns fans who are excited about Shedeur, were not wrong in their assessment of how things went with Shedeur, and this is an example of why. Here we go.
Feeling like he may have been sabotaged or mistreated to rest. The only reason I'm asking because y'all actually played the game. Y'all been there and done that. Do y'all feel like he got a fair shot this preseason? And could he have potentially beat Dillon Gabriel out of that number 1 spot, out of that number 2 spot?
I'll take that one. I don't think he got a fair shot. I think everybody, including coaches, media, everybody he was kind of doomed from the start just because I felt like who his father was. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then that's another knock against him saying, he's only been coached by his dad. If anything, his dad showed him the right way and the only way and how to work hard and do things as a pro. It should be a given you would want to draft this guy. But I felt like, owners and things like that, they didn't really like, Prime and, how flashy he was. So it kind of, put a, bad stain on, Shedeur. But I think Shedeur is one of the classiest guys out there. And, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And
he's still a kid.
And that's the thing, and it's like I said, it's too much court of public opinion. You know what I mean? You got to let the guy play.
I agree with you.
So we're gonna listen to all of their responses, but that's the first one. Do y'all agree with Phil Taylor's assessment of the overall situation? Initially, he said Shedeur didn't get a fair shot. A lot of that was due to outside noise, not that much based on what Shedeur Sanders did. Do y'all agree or disagree with that? Put a 1 if you agree, 2 if you disagree. let's get to the next response to that question.
And I'm going to say it's a different caveat. He definitely didn't get the fair shot.
Right.
However, fifth rounders don't get fair shots.
You're right. You're right.
As a receiver, I didn't get a fair shot. Coaches weren't.
Let me get your message, Dawn. I read it quickly, but I just want to read it for the podcast people. All right. So the plantation has a quota of black QBs in the league. Collective agreement with owners determine how and who will operate as starters. Shedeur comes with his own brand that goes against the grain. So you were highlighting something that I was going to say later, Dawn. You were highlighting something. What a lot of people are trying to do. We're going to get back to Josh Cribbs' response, but I just want to say this now because you just threw me the alley-oop. What a lot of people are trying to do is they are trying to say Shedeur Sanders' name with the likes of Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow. It's because Shedeur Sanders is famous. That's the only thing that they have in common with those other two quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. The owner stepped in when they took him in the first round. They gave him an iPad that tracks how often you study film. He never turned the iPad on. He never studied film. He was not looking at the plays outside of being in practice. You cannot put Johnny Manziel and Shedeur Sanders in the same category because everybody knows Shedeur Sanders is putting in the work. Nobody is saying he isn't studying. Nobody is saying he isn't getting better. They are using that to diminish Shedeur when they put him in the same category as Johnny Manziel. Tim Tebow, they are trying to diminish his ability when they put him with Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow was basically a halfback in college who they just named a quarterback. He rarely threw. More of his highlights are going to be on jump short passes. His mechanics are way too slow. He never had a shot to be a long-standing NFL quarterback, especially based on his mechanics. He was extremely famous. Shedeur Sanders is a real prospect with real opportunity, with real skill. When they put him in that group with those two other guys, they are trying to diminish him because they all three were famous. That's what they are trying to do. And now that's something else. When y'all hear people throw him in and lump him in that group, that's why they're lumping him in that group. They're lumping them together. People don't put you in a box to say something good. Shout out to you, Dawn. Dawn, you have to think more. You have to think deeper as you view situations. When something is playing out in front of your face, the beauty of living longer, which I'll say for myself, is now I can go back and I can compare it to other situations, and I can determine based on my life experience, what I've seen in the past, and I can come together and form how I view it. So there's nothing wrong with thinking deep. Thinking deep and questioning things is what helps you gain knowledge. It's that curiosity on if somebody is saying something that's good or bad, or if they're lying to you or whatever. So that was a great comment. They definitely are trying to diminish him by putting him in a box and group him in with quarterbacks who people saw right away would not last in the NFL. So shout out to you for that, Don. When Shedeur have time in the pocket, he makes plays. That's just a fact. That's just a fact right there. That's just a fact, Beast. If you just look at what he did in Game 1 versus what he did in the final preseason game, it's night and day difference. The only difference was he had an offensive line. They weren't great, but they were a lot better than the offensive line that was for the LA Rams. Shedeur Sanders did similar things versus Carolina with the running backwards and spinning and moving around. The difference was he was able to gain a rhythm in Carolina. He was never able to gain a rhythm with the LA Rams. So it's an easy thing to see. Let's get back to Josh Cribbs' answer. So far, Josh Cribbs has said, let me rewind it back a little bit. I don't want to paraphrase. We'll let him We'll let him speak his mind. Let's see where Phil Taylor finishes. This is going to be Phil Taylor finishing it up.
How flashy it was, so it kind of, put a, bad stain on, Shedeur. But I don't think, I think Shedeur is one of the classiest guys out there. And, you know what I'm saying?
Really absolutely.
When they called Shedeur a statue pre-draft, I was like, man, y'all never watch tape. Y'all don't know.
And he's still a kid.
And that's the thing. And it's, like I said, it's too much court of public opinion. You know what I mean? You got to let the guy play.
I agree with you. And I'm going to say it's a different caveat. He definitely didn't get the fair shot.
Right.
However, fifth rounders don't get fair shots.
You're right.
As a receiver, I didn't get a fair shot. Coaches weren't coaching to me.
He's a fifth rounder that should not have been a fifth rounder, though. It's like,
right.
Are we
He's
serious
a fifth
here?
rounder that didn't
deserve to be.
That didn't deserve to be.
Right.
We got it. However, coaches didn't coach me the same way they coach the guys that's going to start, that they know, the starting receivers.
Right.
I had to pick up and take notes for while they were talking to other people in the same room with me. I'm like, Coach, look at me, Coach, asking Coach a question, and he talking to everybody. He's not even addressing me.
Right.
It's not fair in the NFL. And I think Shedeur Sanders is capable of overcoming the fact that it wasn't fair. When he gets an opportunity with that first group, it will be different.
Yeah.
He will shine.
Yeah.
However, he has to just be ready for the opportunity when and if it comes.
So that's Josh Cribbs, who actually, he's a Cleveland Browns legend. He just summed it up right there. He said it's not fair. They're not coaching to you. They're coaching to the guys who are going to start. Now, based on what he just said, let's compare that to what we saw with all this media coverage around the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. Does anybody believe Shedeur had a fair shot, or was it a level playing field with Dillon Gabriel? The answer is no. I'll answer for y'all. I know y'all agree with that. The second one is they are preparing the guys who are going to start. So once they put you in, your third string, your fourth string, they know they're not coaching you the same way. And the problem was people saw it in real time. So then they had to go on a PR run. So if y'all notice, once rookie minicamp happened, after rookie minicamp and the Browns put out the clips and they saw the throws, we saw the throws from Dillon Gabriel, we saw the throws from Shedeur. My bad, I lost train of thought because I was thinking about Dillon Gabriel's interception. Once they put that out, we was like, man, Shedeur looked better. He didn't throw any interceptions. We saw it. From that point on, things started to change, and we started to hear Shedeur, he's struggling to call the plays. He's struggling with the playbook. He's struggling with the terminology. He's struggling with the operational things in the NFL. That's what we started to hear those rumblings after a rookie minicamp. As we saw more footage when we got into the camp in July, we saw more footage. We heard more people talking about it. The stance against Shedeur became way firmer, and that's when I started to realize the Browns are putting this out. Because then what do we hear? He is so far behind Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel is a supercomputer. That's when we started hitting the supercomputer stuff. He's so far behind. It's going to take time. Then what word did they put on Shedeur then? Developmental quarterback. So the Browns were putting out all these things to try to say, darn, it's nothing wrong with being new to it. That's why you see right through when they're lying to you. Football fans accept when they get lied to, but you like, man, that person's lying. That's what I was saying earlier in the show. I was saying the difference is the people who are new to football, they see right through the things that the normal football fan has accepted, and they're not wrong for seeing through it. When they were questioning if Kevin Stefanski was open and honest, they saw through it because he was up there telling lies. When they looked at Andrew Berry, they heard him speak. They were like, something's off with him. Yeah, because he was lying. So the new football people are the ones who identified the lies the fastest because they just identified a person not being honest. So there's nothing wrong with that. Mrs. Pamela, I don't know if we can successfully put that together. My bad, it was all caps, so that's why my bot got you. Mrs. Pamela said boycott the NFL. I don't know if we can successfully put that together. Beast, Shedeur don't need development. Tom Brady was his mentor. He just has some bad habits from college. I agree he has bad habits from college. I think Shedeur needs reps. More than anything, I think he needs reps. That's what I think he needs. They put a monkey wrench in the situation when they had him going to practice early, throwing so much by not giving him reps. Then they got him staying after practice to try to get reps in. He overexerted himself because he wasn't getting the work in practice. So to get better at football, you got to play football, and I think he needs more reps. That's why it was such a disservice they did to the quarterbacks by keeping Kenny Pickett there. Kenny Pickett there, he just put a monkey wrench in everything because he was taking reps he didn't need. All right, Don, I got a question for you. All right, so you watched the interview yesterday. Do you believe you were looking at a person that was telling the truth? I'm guessing you saw Kevin Stefanski's interview yesterday. Was that a person? Did you look at him as he was speaking and say, I believe everything he's saying? We're going to get to Dawn's answer when she responds. Let's see what Hanford Dixon says. Tillman is penciled in to be a starter. Yes, he is penciled in to be a starter. He's penciled in to be the number 2. He did have something up with his thumb, so he didn't play in the final preseason game. But he is definitely slated to be a starter. See, now, this is what the Browns are doing. Now the Browns are showing a little bit more because they know that they're not offering the same level of access. So now they just put out clips. I agree. He's going to look totally different. Once they get him in there with the ones, he's going to look different. That's just what it is. So, yeah, they are. See, there's 2 ways you can look at it, Miss Pamela. Can't stand to watch them destroy Shedeur. If you hear what the end of what Josh Cribb said, he believes Shedeur Sanders has the willpower, has the wherewithal, has the ability to overcome the things that they are doing. And that's how I view Shedeur. I believe in Shedeur, and I think he can overcome a bad situation. That's what I think. I don't think they are capable of destroying Shedeur's confidence because he's overly confident. Look who his dad is. So I think they could slow down him getting on the field, but it's the Cleveland Browns. Since Kevin Stefanski been here, we played 3 to 4 quarterbacks, or let me word that right. 3 to 4 quarterbacks end up starting the game since Kevin Stefanski been here, and he's number 3. So I don't think anything is going to change this year. I think nothing's going to change. I think we're going to play 3 quarterbacks this year. So I also think the Browns are doing a lot of things to eliminate. He's not getting reps with the ones. He's not going to get reps with the ones now because it's under the guise of we got to get the starters ready. We got to get the starters ready. We got a real game in 8 days, 9 days. So now he's not going to get reps with the ones. It's another side to this. Like, it always depends on how you view it if you can find a positive in the situation. He's not getting the reps with the ones, right? So he's not going through the game plan because he's not going to be the starter. But what is he doing? He is now the scout team quarterback. The scout team quarterback goes against the number 1 defense. I prefer Shedeur go against the number 1 defense because that's going to get him better. So if you just look at a bunch of quarterbacks who weren't the starter, the way they get better is going against the number 1 defense who was repping for the league. Let me go through some comments we have here. Dawn, his GPA, I agree, not ignorant. Anthony Jackson, noticed the receivers he worked with got better, not giving him reps, stalled the chemistry of the first and second team receivers. See, if he was going to be the starter, they never gave him starter reps, and then he had to go be the starter, I would say that, yes, they hurt the chemistry between them. But when they were going to start Joe Flacco, and they never had intentions of starting Shedeur, even though I believe in the long run Shedeur is better, it's going to work out because Joe Flacco's going to be the one throwing the ball. He's going to be the one getting the reps. So that's why I'm saying, like, you can find we're basically playing a game. Find a negative or find a positive. So to me, I want Shedeur to get better, and if he's not going to get the reps with the first or second team, the best thing he can get is reps against the number one defense. That's how you get better. That's how you get the speed down. You're going against the Denzel Ward when you're throwing to the receivers. You got Myles Garrett rushing at you. So this is how he's going to get better. In the circumstances, it's not ideal, but in this situation he's in, the best spot to be in is the guy that's running the scout team, because you get all the reps against the better defense, which make you better. That's going to make you better. If you're the number 2 and you are outplaying the number 2 defense, you don't really get better. There you go. There you go. So, Dawn, I was waiting on you for that response. You were saying you saw deception when you watched the interview, and it's true. And that's something that's baked into the NFL that new people to the NFL are saying, man, this ain't right. I don't believe these people. Miss Pamela, has Shedeur ever thrown the ball to Judy? I don't believe so. But remember how I'm looking at it. I think I want Shedeur to get better the best way he can in the circumstances that he's in. And I have no doubt that if Shedeur went through a week of starter prep, I got no doubts that he'll be able to find Judy. He'll be able to find Harold Fannin. He'll be able to find David Njoku. He'll be able to find the receivers. Because I believe in Shedeur. So it's not ideal, but on that side of it, I think he'll be fine. Where Shedeur needs to work is not drifting back, not knowing when the play is over, and going against the number 1 defense. That's how he's going to get better at those things. You get better at those things by understanding this is my internal clock. This is how long I got when I drop back. This is how long I have to scan the field. When I identify this is the defense, this is where I got to go with the ball. So that's how he'll get better in this situation. So I got belief in Shedeur. It's not the best situation, but diamonds don't come from beautiful grass. Where they find diamonds at? They find diamonds in the dirt. They find diamonds in the dirt of countries that don't got the GDP of the United States. So Shedeur's the diamond, and he's going to come out through the dirt, and he's going to make this thing go. I'm not worried about it. Gage trained with Shedeur and moved up and made the 53 roster. That's a fact. Boog, I would say he's a Sanders family friend. He is I believe he's a founder member of Young Money, Young Money, their agent group. And he is the one who told Shedeur, hey, link up with Gage. He's from South Carolina. I need y'all to work together. I was happy to see Gage make the team. I actually think that depending on what happens in the future, Gage could take over the kick and punt return duties, and they might be able to get rid of DeAndre Carter, and Gage could take that spot. So I think that was good for them to get that timing down. I think that was one of the things that also people question. Like, if Shedeur wins the Super Bowl for Cleveland, he will go down as the greatest Cleveland athlete to ever live, even only with one Super Bowl. Cleveland is so starved for a Super Bowl that it will be bigger than the parade in 2016 when the Cavs won. I went to that parade. They said it was about 1.2 million people there. They didn't even have barricades up. It'll be bigger than that. I mean, you have Cleveland Browns fans who were fans of the Browns. They're in their 70s, 80s. It's going to be the biggest parade ever. And if he wins the Super Bowl, call it now. Greatest Cleveland athlete of all time with one Super Bowl. All it takes is one. All right, so let's get to Hanford Dixon's response.
And again, you guys talked about it. His name is Shedeur Sanders. That's his name. And me personally, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why the hell he dropped to the 5th round. I don't understand it. I don't understand why all these teams just passed right over him. I just don't get it.
I did see something come out earlier last week. Eric Dickerson. He was saying that some owners were saying not to draft him and things like that. I mean, I hope it ain't true because allegedly, like, you know what I'm saying? I hope it ain't true, but if that is the case, man, that's tough. You know what I mean?
I think he was saying because
I broke that down. I broke that down in real time, where I was saying that owners took Shedeur off their board. It was early on, around the owners meeting. That's when Jason Lloyd came back and said, "Oh, I was hearing things about Shedeur." I remember Todd McShay was talking about the Saints took him off the board, Giants took him off the board, and then Boomer Esiason was saying he knows of 3 teams that took him off the board. So there is some credence to Shedeur being taken off the board from a decent amount of teams. So he was taken off. We heard their responses. They played for the Browns. You heard Josh Cribbs saying, hey, Shedeur, he can turn this around. He's good enough. He can do this. And I believe in Shedeur as well. So this is our second to last clip. There's a new show. It's on Gil's Arena. It's going to have Skip Bayless, Aqib Talib. It's going to have Jay Gruden. Sometimes Gilbert is going to be on there. This is their first episode. They're going to speak on Shedeur. And this is just to highlight how people who have worked in the NFL always go back to the same talking points. Let's go.
Tom Brady, after he beat out Alabama in the Orange Bowl. 6'5", 180 pounds coming out. What do you really do? 6'5". I mean, you can't. Yeah, but you saw his combine. Yeah. Ain't no way anybody can predict that. Did you go put the tape in of Alabama, Michigan against Alabama in the Orange Bowl, and tell me what you saw? I saw Tom Brady. I did.
Same exact Tom Brady of now. That's who played in that game.
Yeah, he was. You saw him at the combine. His shorts are too big. He looked like well, he couldn't even. Ain't no way anybody can say I'm taking that guy at number 1.
Yeah, you couldn't win the job.
6 Super Bowls. Ain't no way.
He was a part-time starter at Michigan. He was battling.
We say Joe Montana was in the 3rd. We say that all the time. I mean, Purdy is 7th last pick in the draft. It happens.
Man,
go win a job.
It was bigger than ball, man.
Kirk Cousins was 4th.
It was bigger than football.
And even
with his personality.
There's no exact science evaluating quarterbacks. But I do know this. 32 GMs and 32 NFL coaches, if they think he is going to be the next Tom Brady, they ain't passing off. They're just passing on over.
And all them guys.
So you see how quick guys who worked in the NFL, how they go back to the same thing. I called this a lot for months. It's not true. They will pass up on guys. Once you start to name all the guys they missed out on, then they say, oh, it's not a direct science. Okay, so how did Brock Purdy end up being the best starter from his draft class, and he was the last one taken? If they knew that Purdy was going to be that, he would have got drafted in the 1st round. He would have been the first quarterback taken. So they don't have a good science for it, and they go back to things that are outdated with how they view it. They talked about a game that Tom Brady had versus Alabama, and he talked about how Tom Brady looked at the combine. Which one is more important? Because that was another thing they tried to say was messed up with Shedeur. Oh, he didn't participate at the combine. That combine don't mean nothing towards how you're going to perform on the field. So this is the old way of thinking. So let's see what you got for us, Anthony. Shedeur is bringing light to the public about tactics that the NFL uses to control narratives. Man. Anthony, I'm not sure how long you've been in the stream, but that was something I was highlighting earlier, that's why the new Shedeur is bringing, I said this a while ago, Shedeur is bringing in a group of fans who are not NFL fans. They don't sit and watch all the NFL games on Sunday. They watch when Shedeur plays. That's all they watch. They only hear from Shedeur. And that group of people identifies when people are lying, when people are not being truthful, when people are withholding things, and they are like, y'all accept this in the NFL? And that ties into what you said. The NFL controls the narrative through reporters, through national newsbreakers. It's all tied in together. It's all baked in the cake, as I was saying earlier. And new people to NFL are like, this don't even make sense. They're like, how do y'all accept these people lying to you? And that's why your comment is so good, because they are exposing that there's a lot of people who cover the NFL, who are part of this nucleus of NFL coverage, that are going to be eliminated. And that's what it's exposing. Like, I think the beat reporter job is over. I think in 5 years, teams will not have beat reporters. I think they're going to switch to a motto, and it's very similar to when you listen to a earnings call from a company. What they do is they have the shareholders put in questions, and those are the questions that they answer. And usually those are the best questions. I wouldn't be surprised if when they do their press conferences during the week, I wouldn't be surprised if they use a system to have people submit questions, and whichever questions came the most, those would be the questions that they responded to. And that would eliminate the beat reporter. The beat reporter is only there to repeat information because they were put in place when there was a delay in how fast we got information. Now that there's not really a delay in how fast we get information, the beat reporter is obsolete. And that goes to what you said, Anthony, that these are just tools that they use to control the narrative. That's why Mary Kay can go out there and say the Browns are going to carry 4 quarterbacks. That's why Adam Schefter can say the Browns are going to carry 4 quarterbacks, because the Browns fed them that information only to not carry 4 quarterbacks. So it's just, they're exposing how this thing goes. And it's going to get to a point where change is going to be forced, because there's going to be too many new people who say, why did y'all ever accept this? That's when change happens. People forced to change. Let's see if we got any more for this.
Todd McShay. I mean, I'm just saying, all those guys had him as the number 1 guy. Then you fall to the 5th round. That's not a coincidence. That's a cahoot.
I think going into his senior year, there was talk about him being the number 1 guy. He showed flashes at Jackson State and Colorado, bringing Colorado back up. And his senior year, or last year at Colorado, he was going to put on a great clinic. And
he did, though.
He did.
He put up 40. How many
took 65 sacks? I mean,
he threw 40-some touchdowns.
He was 10 for 40 against BYU. Just
That's one game.
There's other. Let's look at the good teams that he played against.
He damn near could have been in the Heisman race with Travis.
He wasn't.
But he wasn't, yeah.
He could have been, no. I mean, he could have been.
Why? Because he wasn't. He didn't have that good of a year.
He led the nation in completion percentage.
This is when they want to rewrite history. Shedeur was, I believe he was 8th in Heisman voting. This is when they try to rewrite history, and they always go to the same tropes. I think he's going to say a couple more, and then we're going to shoot him down.
Like, come on, man.
How many bubble screens threw to Travis Hunter? 48.
Yeah.
Okay? 48 bubble screens. I can complete 47 of them.
Well, it's already written.
Right?
They always go to the same thing. He completed so many passes at or around the line of scrimmage. Okay. Why did he do that? Because they had no running game, because their offensive line couldn't block, so an extension of their running game was bubble screens. But once you look at the numbers, it was not 48% of his passes. That's going to be a L for you, Jay. Jay also says, man, I don't believe these owners will come together and do something like this to a player if they believe the player can help. Have y'all ever heard the term cognitive dissonance? And the reason why I'm bringing that up with Jay is because, do y'all know who his brother is? His brother's John Gruden. Do you know what he's currently doing? He's currently suing the NFL for targeting him while he was the head coach of the Raiders and leaking things that were bad to get him fired. So we're supposed to believe that the NFL isn't capable of doing these things. The NFL colluded to not give quarterbacks guaranteed contracts. It was proven. The NFLPA dropped the ball on that. The NFL colluded against Colin Kaepernick. It was proven with the settlement that they paid him out. The NFL, we don't have the evidence of it, but we can see it. The NFL colluded against Lamar Jackson when he was a restricted free agent, and quarterback-needy teams didn't even call him to speak to him. The same quarterback-needy teams who were going after Deshaun Watson with all the baggage that he came with. So just saying the NFL wouldn't do this is disregarding the history of things that they've done. So that's going to be another L. This is a new show. They're going to be on 3 times a week. They might give us some good clips here and there. I'm not going to show them every week, but if they're talking about something that makes sense to what we're speaking on, we might bring them up. That's on Gil's Arena. That's a new show that he put out. Last thing we're going to get to. We're going to get to the Cleveland Browns. We're going to look ahead to the Cleveland Browns and their Week 1 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cleveland Browns, in their last 8 games, when Cincinnati Bengals had Joe Burrow as a starter, the Cleveland Browns are 5-3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. The reason why they do so well against the Cincinnati Bengals is their offensive line. The Bengals' offensive line isn't good. The Browns' defensive line is their strength and has been their strength. And then also the secondaries. Cleveland had a 3-man. Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it. I do one weekly show like this where I'm just breaking down a lot of different topics. And then I also do live coverage when I'm listening to a game. I appreciate you, Don. It's been great speaking with you. Shout out to you for subscribing, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. So thank you. I appreciate you. So the Cleveland Browns had 3 legit cornerbacks who could defend the 3 receivers that Cincinnati was throwing out there. We were uniquely designed to do that because we could put Martin Emerson on T. Higgins. We could put Denzel Ward on Jamar Chase. And then I forgot the slot receiver, but we could put Greg Newsome on him. And that's how we were able to have some good games against him. So going into this matchup, I started looking at some Cincinnati Bengals things. There are still question marks around their offensive line. They believe that the Bengals haven't done the most to protect Joe Burrow. So I think that bodes well for the Cleveland Browns moving forward. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals should run the ball a little bit more for them to have success. But, hey, don't run the ball. Keep dropping back trying to throw it and deal with Myles Garrett and our upgraded defensive line and what we'll be able to throw at you. I have to check. I'll check closer to the game and see who is favored. But if the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line isn't improved by a lot, I think the Browns have a good chance of wrecking this game with our defense. And if we keep this thing low scoring, we can't let them put up the number of points they were putting up last year. Joe Burrow should have been in the MVP conversation last year. He wasn't. I think he had the best year of a quarterback last year. I'm throwing it out there. So we're going to see. But just wanted to look ahead a little bit to that matchup in Week 1 with the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. So I believe the Browns will do well there. Like, comment, and subscribe. This is Eliminate the Gray with OffThaRecordDee. I do longer podcasts, so I usually at least go for an hour and a half. This was coming up on that 2-hour mark. I'll get some timestamps in, so if you go back and you watch my live streams or you want to go back to a certain point, I'll put the timestamps in there just for people. Once it's long like this, you want to get those timestamps. Also, you can find me anywhere you listen to podcasts. It is Eliminate the Gray with OffThaRecordDee. If you search either one of those things, you can listen to me on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. I'll have the podcast up about 2:30 today on Apple, Spotify, all those things. I'll get it released tomorrow morning on YouTube. So even if you got YouTube Music, you can listen to the podcast version like in the background because it is longer. So I appreciate everybody for tapping in. I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the questions, the comments. I appreciate everybody who is liking and subscribing. Shout out to y'all. It's been a great one. I will see y'all tomorrow for Texas versus Ohio State. We'll be doing a watch party, and I'll be giving you my analysis of that big game. We'll also get to see what Arch Manning is because we don't know. So I appreciate y'all. It's been great. Catch y'all in the next one. It's been real. Peace.